She only wanted to buy a simple gift, but instead she was humiliated, treated like a thief, and watched as if she didn't belong there. What no one expected was that the millionaire owner of the store would walk in at that exact moment and reveal a truth that left everyone speechless. If you want to see how this story turns upside down, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel because you are not ready for what's about to happen. The morning had barely begun when Donna Alzira, an elderly black woman with slow steps and eyes full of stories, pushed open the glass door of the luxurious jewelry store that sparkled under the bright lights of the mall. She wore a simple yet impeccably clean dress and carried with her an old worn leather bag, weathered by time just like her wrinkled hands that told of decades of silent struggles. As she walked across the polished floor, she felt a mix of admiration and nostalgia upon seeing such dazzling pieces. Even though she had never bought anything of that magnitude, she knew how to recognize beauty, value, and meaning in every detail. In that shine, there was a distant memory of when, still young, she would watch her mother sew colorful beads onto festive garments. Little treasures that taught her that the worth of things often lies not in their price, but in the stories they carry. However, before she even approached the main display, she noticed the employees beginning to watch her with sidelong glances, as if her mere presence in that space were a strange disturbance in the perfect scene they believed they curated. Two attendants whispered something to each other, discreetly gesturing in the elderly woman's direction, as though she posed some imminent threat or an inconvenience that needed to be neutralized. Donna Alzira, who had felt similar looks in so many moments of her life, took a deep breath. It was a breath heavy with centuries, hers, her mother's, and those of so many black women who learned to walk through the world with their spines straight, even when the world insisted on bending them. The dignity that rose from that gesture was as silent as it was powerful, a strength that few around her would be able to see, but one that had always sustained her through her hardest days. Still, she moved forward. She walked toward the display as someone reclaiming an ancient right, the right to exist without asking permission. Her slow steps echoed through the store like an uncomfortable reminder to those who tried to ignore her presence. A reminder that beauty and worth are not measured by clothing, nor by skin color, and far less by the hurried prejudices of those who look without seeing. And standing before a gold necklace crafted with painstaking detail, Donna Alzira allowed herself to smile. It was not the smile of someone who longs to possess, but of someone who recognizes, in the cold gleam of the metal, the proof that time can be harsh, but it also knows how to polish. And she, despite everything, was living proof of that. She took a few more steps, slowly approaching a display filled with gleaming necklaces and, with the delicacy of someone who appreciates art, raised her hand to the glass to observe a piece with a classic design. The gesture was gentle, almost reverent, like someone touching the memory of something ancient. Even so, it seemed to set off an invisible alarm among the employees. One of them, visibly uncomfortable, hurried over to her with a smile far too stiff to be genuine, and a formality that smelled more of surveillance than of welcome. "Ma'am, please don't touch the glass. The smudges interfere with our cleaning," he said, in a sharp tone disguised as politeness, while his eyes scanned Donna Alzira as if searching for something that would justify the approach. Farther back, another employee crossed his arms and remained still, watching her with the posture typical of someone ready to prevent an imaginary escape, as if an elderly woman with slow steps could suddenly turn the jewelry store into a crime scene. His presence weighed in the air, transforming the luxurious space into a silent arena of distrust. Donna Alzira felt her chest tighten, not because of the exact words, but because of the intention woven into them. That old, bitter feeling of being seen not for who she was, but through stereotypes as ancient as they were unjust. It was a tightness she recognized since childhood, when she learned far too early that, to some, her appearance came with an automatic suspicion. Even so, she took a deep breath. The air entered heavy, but left coated with the calm she had learned to cultivate so she wouldn't explode in the face of the injustices the world insisted on serving her. With a gentle voice, she asked to see one of the necklaces up close. The attendant, however, changed her expression in an instant, like a door that suddenly slammed shut after years of creaking warnings. "This piece is very expensive, ma'am. "It's not for handling without supervision," she stated, in a tone that made it clear that, to her, Donna Alzira did not belong in that space. The sentence fell upon the elderly woman's heart like a cold, silent weight, opening inside her that old wound that never fully healed. She fought to keep her posture straight, to keep the hurt from spilling through her eyes, to keep from giving anyone the pleasure of watching her fall apart. It was astonishing how some humiliations always found a way to be reborn, even when she believed she had already learned how to face them. As she tried to respond, calmly explaining that she only wanted to observe the necklace up close, she was immediately interrupted by a second attendant, who appeared beside her with a suspicious look and a stern expression. "Are you alone, ma'am? Are you looking for something specific?" she asked with words that, on their own, might have sounded professional, but that in that moment came drenched in silent suspicion, as though they expected to extract from her a confession that never existed. Donna Alzira felt the question cut through her like an icy wind. Those inquiries, repeated so many times throughout her life, always carried the same bitter taste, that of a prior judgment, as automatic as it was unjust. No matter how much she tried to shield herself, it was impossible not to feel the impact. She noticed that some customers had begun to glance at her from the corner of their eyes, perhaps curious, perhaps wary, perhaps simply reproducing, without thinking, the behavior that lingered in the air like an unpleasant perfume. The jewelry store, once sophisticated and quiet, now felt smaller, stifling, almost threatening, as though the shine of the displays reflected not luxury, but hostility. Trying to preserve her composure, Donna Alzira stepped back half a pace, taking a deep breath to hold on to what little calm she still had. But before she could fully gather herself, she heard firm footsteps approaching. The store's security guard, tall, strong, stern-faced, stopped in front of her. His posture was rigid, his voice trained, almost mechanical. "Ma'am, please, could you open your bag?" The sentence sliced through the room like a cold blade, cutting through any fragment of dignity she had been trying to protect. Open the bag, be searched like a criminal, be treated as someone who wasn't there to admire, but to steal. And all of this without her having done anything at all besides existing in that space, with her skin, her age, her history, elements that, in that instant, seemed to be perceived not as parts of who she was, but as a threat. Donna Alzira felt her body tremble, not from guilt, but from deep hurt. It was as though each of those looks and words was trying to rewrite her entire life, reducing her to an unfounded suspicion. She, who carried decades of dignity and work, was now being forced into a humiliation she did not deserve, and that, even so, felt far too familiar. "I didn't take anything," but it seemed no one was willing to hear the truth before believing the worst possible version of her. The words, simple and honest, fell onto the jewelry store's polished floor without leaving an echo, swallowed by an environment already contaminated with silent judgment. The store supervisor, alerted by the employees' tense looks, approached with quick steps, an air of authority, and a rigidity that resembled condemnation far more than professionalism. "What's going on?" he asked, though his tone made it clear he wasn't there to understand, only to confirm suspicions. The attendant spoke first. She adjusted the extravagant necklace she wore around her neck, and with an expression that blended manufactured indignation and self-protection, began to explain. "The lady handled the pieces without permission, acted suspiciously, and did not follow our guidelines," she said, as if reporting a serious incident rather than a misunderstanding fueled by prejudice. The supervisor didn't even look at Donna Alzira. He simply nodded, as though everything had already been decided the moment she walked through the glass door. As if her simple appearance, her age, her skin, her history were proof enough that she didn't belong there. It was a silent judgment, but a devastating one. Donna Alzira's legs began to tremble, almost imperceptibly. It wasn't fear, it was exhaustion, an exhaustion born not only from that moment, but from decades. How many times had she been looked at like that? How many times had she seen doors close with the same mute brutality? How many times had she needed to explain, justify, defend herself without having done anything except exist. The urge to cry rose hot in her throat, threatening to spill over. It was as if every word from the attendant, every averted gaze, every quick judgment was peeling back the scabs of old wounds she had spent her entire life trying to heal. Even so, she remained steady. She straightened her posture, took a deep breath, and held back the tears that threatened to escape. Because she knew, painfully knew, that falling apart there, in front of people who already saw her as a suspect, would only give them one more argument to reinforce the narrative they had created about her. And with that, she found a strength that should not have been necessary, but that she had always been forced to carry. The strength to exist with dignity in a world that, so often, tried to deny it. It was at the exact moment when the supervisor once again insisted that she open her bag that the store's automatic door slid open, emitting its characteristic sound, soft and almost imperceptible. But in that moment, it seemed to echo like thunder. A young man walked in, wearing a flawless suit, his steps firm, and his presence filling the entire room. Lucas Andrade, the name on magazine covers, news reports, and motivational campaigns. The owner of the jewelry chain, the millionaire entrepreneur who had built his empire through hard work, sharp intelligence, and an inspiring story of perseverance. The employees nearly choked on their own posture. They straightened their collars, adjusted their smiles, attempted to erase from their faces any trace of the tension they had created just seconds earlier. It was always like this when Lucas appeared unannounced, a mix of respect, fear, and a desperate desire to impress. But he didn't look at any of them. He didn't greet, didn't smile, didn't nod. His gaze swept through the store with urgency, as if looking for something or someone who truly mattered. And then he found her. The sight of Donna Alzira, cornered, clutching her bag against her body and wearing a wounded expression, froze Lucas for half a second. In that brief instant, something inside him shattered. His eyes widened, his breath faltered, and his next step came fast, almost impulsive. He crossed the space between them without hearing anything else, without noticing the supervisor at his side, without registering the confusion on the attendants' faces. He stopped in front of her and without hesitation, wrapped her in a firm, heartfelt embrace, deep, full of a kind of affection that needed no explanation. "Donna Alzira," he murmured, voice trembling, like someone who has just found something essential that should never have been lost. She recognized him by the touch before even processing the scene. That little boy from decades ago, whom she had cradled in her arms, fed soup on difficult days, taught to keep his heart clean even when the world was dirty. The employees stood frozen. The security guard lowered his arms at once. The supervisor lost all color in his face, and the attendants exchanged wide-eyed looks. The suspect? The problem? The woman they were seconds away from humiliating even further? She was, by all appearances, someone who held not only a place of respect in the store owner's life, but a profound, intimate, and untouchable place in his very heart. And for a moment, the silence that took over the jewelry store did not come from luxury, but from the shame that began to weigh on everyone present. The silence that settled after that embrace felt impossible to break, as if the entire room had been frozen in a single second of pure incredulity. The air, once heavy with suspicion, was now thick with surprise and embarrassment. The employees exchanged uneasy glances. The security guard took an involuntary step back, as if wishing he could disappear from the authoritative posture he had assumed moments earlier. A few customers, driven by curiosity, edged closer discreetly, trying to understand the unexpected turn of events. Lucas kept Donna Alzira in his arms for a few seconds that felt far too long for everyone watching, yet far too short for someone who had just found an essential piece of his own life again. It was as if he needed to feel her warmth, the familiar scent of her aged leather bag, the steady presence of the woman who had watched him grow, to believe she was truly there, before him, after so many years. When he finally stepped back, he made a gesture no one in that jewelry store could have predicted. He gently lifted her face with both hands, like a son does with someone he loves deeply, and said with unmistakable emotion in his voice, "Godmother, It's been so long. I was planning to visit you later this week." The word fell over the room like a lightning bolt. "Godmother." The sound echoed among the gleaming displays, rippled across the polished floor, and shattered the veneer of superiority that some there had been wearing. It was as if it had broken all at once, the distorted lens through which everyone had viewed Donna Alzira just minutes earlier. The attendants, who moments earlier had been so certain of their suspicions, felt their stomachs twist. Now they tried to mentally reorder the facts, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could justify the way they had treated that woman. Not in light of who she was, not in light of how she was being treated by the man who held such profound respect for her. The supervisor, who seconds earlier had demanded that she open her bag with the authoritarian firmness of someone convinced he was in control, now had no idea what to do with his hands. He tried adjusting his collar, an automatic, almost desperate gesture, as if he could hide the discomfort coursing through him. But the flush on his face and the subtle tremor in his fingers betrayed the truth. He knew exactly the magnitude of the injustice he had committed, and that the entire store had witnessed it. And in that instant, the whole jewelry store seemed to shrink before the quiet greatness of Donna Alzira, who stood there, fragile and strong at once, holding together with dignity a scene that never should have happened. Lucas, feeling the suffocating weight that hung over the jewelry store, turned slowly to the staff. His arm remained resting on Donna Alzira's shoulder, not just a gesture of affection, but a silent declaration of protection, respect, and belonging. It was as if he were saying, without words, "She is with me, and that is enough." His gaze traveled across each face one by one. There was no uncontrolled fury there. There was something worse, a deep, steady, uncomfortable disappointment, the kind that doesn't need volume to wound. That silence alone was a reprimand. "What exactly is happening here?" he asked, though his expression already made it clear he suspected the answer. The closest attendant tried to speak first. The smile she forced onto her face was crooked, trembling, as out of place as the exaggerated arrogance she had displayed minutes earlier. "Mr. Lucas, we were just following protocol," she began, stumbling over the words. "The lady was showing suspicious behavior, touching the pieces without authorization. We were only acting to protect the store." But Lucas raised his hand, interrupting her with a firm gesture. Not aggressive, but final, like someone putting an end to an absurd discussion. The attendant fell silent immediately. "Suspicious behavior?" he repeated, incredulity sharp in every syllable. Silence settled again, heavier than before. The employees shrank back, bracing for impact. Lucas looked at Donna Alzira with a tenderness that contrasted brutally with the sudden hardness in his posture when he addressed the staff. "You're talking about this woman?" he asked, gesturing lightly toward her, as if it were impossible they could be referring to the person he knew so well. He drew a deep breath. It was an attempt to contain the emotion threatening to escape. Not only anger, but sadness. "Do you have any idea at all, who this woman is?" No one answered. There were no words, only faces lowering their eyes, swallowing hard, trying in vain to disappear behind showcases and artificial shine. The silence that followed wasn't merely an absence of sound. It was a painful acknowledgement, a mute admission that they had failed, not in protocol, but in humanity. It was a silence made of regret, of shame, of realizations that came too late. A silence that revealed, effortlessly, the magnitude of the injustice committed against someone who should never have been treated that way. Noticing that everyone was paying attention, the kind of attention that comes from discomfort, almost from regret, Lucas stepped forward, positioning himself beside his godmother, with the posture of someone presenting someone untouchable. His hand remained resting on her shoulder, not only as support, but as a public symbol of respect, as if he were telling everyone there, "Stand before this woman, because she deserves far more than you have ever offered." He drew a deep breath, and when he began to speak, his voice no longer carried business-like authority, but human emotion. Deep, raw, filled with memories that hurt and yet illuminated. "When I was young," he said, letting each word find its own pace, "I lived in a community where, many times everything was missing. Everything: food and structure, safety, hope. The employees exchanged uncertain glances, as if trying to follow a story whose beginning they had never known. My parents worked all day, but even so, he sighed, gently squeezing Dona Alzira's shoulder. We still couldn't keep the house running as we should. There were days when I came home from school with my stomach aching from hunger, because there was simply nothing. He paused. It wasn't theatrical. It was necessary. He was reliving it. When he continued, his voice was softer, yet steadier, like a river that flows without hesitation. And it was this woman. He turned to her, and the tenderness in his gaze seemed to illuminate the entire room, shattering any shadow of doubt, pride, or arrogance. This woman right here, who took me in when no one else seemed to see the boy I was. Someone in the back of the store quietly sucked in a breath. She shared what she had, Lucas continued, and many times what she didn't have, just so I would never stop believing that life could be better, that I could be better. The customers who moments earlier had been watching out of curiosity now seemed to absorb every word with an almost ceremonial respect. The attendants, who minutes before had curled their noses at Dona Alzira's presence, now stared at the floor with pulsing shame. The supervisor swallowed hard, aware that any justification now would sound small, ridiculous, offensive. The truth stood there, clear as the shine of the jewelry on display. That humble elderly woman, with her simple dress and worn bag, was not just a visitor. She was not an ordinary customer, nor a suspect, nor an inconvenience. She was a living, fundamental, essential part of the story of a man who turned poverty into an empire. She was in practice one of the invisible pillars that had supported the success everyone there admired. And for the first time since she entered the store, the way they looked at Dona Alzira changed, not out of fear of Lucas, but out of the late realization of what they had failed to see, the human worth that should never have been measured by appearance. She fed me when I had nothing. Lucas's voice echoed through the showroom, firm but edged with an emotion that trembled at its borders. She bought me notebooks when I thought about giving up on school. She listened to me when I was sad, advised me when I felt lost, and pushed me forward when I couldn't see a way out of anything. As he spoke, the force of his memories seemed to cut through his chest, rekindling old pains, but also a deep, overwhelming gratitude. His tone grew steadier, fuller, yet emotion still spilled from every word, threatening to break him. And you? He turned his gaze to the staff, not with hatred, but with a truth none of them could withstand. You looked at her and saw what? A threat? A suspect? A thief? His words didn't need volume. They hit each of them with brutal weight. It was as if each sentence exposed, without any filter, the chasm between what they had assumed and the reality standing before them. The employee who had accused Dona Alzira of handling the jewelry improperly trembled slightly. Her eyes refused to leave the floor, as if the polished tiles could save her from the guilt burning in her hands. She remembered every word she'd said, every arrogant gesture, every sideways glance. And now all of it seemed monstrously small. The supervisor, once so certain, so full of false authority, now looked diminished inside his own suit. His movements were stiff, tense, as if his own body were betraying him. He battled the shame spilling out of him because he knew that in that moment there was no procedure, no protocol, no justification that could rewrite what everyone there had witnessed. And at the center of it all stood Dona Alzira. Her tear-brimmed eyes glistened not from humiliation, which she had felt too many times in her life, but from the way Lucas defended her. She watched him with a mix of pride and humility. Pride in seeing him so strong, so accomplished, so honorable. Humility because she had never expected recognition for the things she'd done purely from the heart, never imagining that one day her gestures would be remembered, much less in front of a stunned audience. She didn't need that moment to know she had done good, but seeing him there, speaking with such honesty, felt like receiving a gift she never asked for. But that life had finally decided to deliver. And there, among gold jewelry and glittering displays, a truth far greater than any necklace shown with incomparable intensity. True greatness does not come from luxury, nor from appearances, nor from the price of things. Greatness is born from the quiet generosity that transforms lives, the kind Donna Alzira offered without expecting anything in return, and that shaped the destiny of a boy who had become the owner of an empire. And for a few moments, even those who had never seen her before finally saw her exactly as she was, a rare treasure of immeasurable worth. Lucas then took a deep breath, gathering all the emotion bubbling inside him, and looked again at his godmother. He touched her hand with a tenderness that said far more than any words could. "If I have all of this today," he said, gesturing broadly to the store, the displays, the shine, the empire he had built, this store, this chain, this success, it's because this woman believed in me when I was just a boy with hunger, fear, and a dream too small to fit into the world. The pause he made after that sentence wasn't merely dramatic, it was necessary. He needed to breathe. Everyone did. His words hung in the air with a soft but profound weight, forcing each person there to silently rethink what had just happened. It was the kind of truth one doesn't hear every day. Then he turned fully to her, his expression gentle and firm at once. "Godmother, choose whatever you want. Any piece, any necklace, any ring, not because you need it, but because you deserve it, and because nothing I do will ever be enough to repay what you did for me." Donna Alzira shook her head immediately, embarrassed, almost stepping back, as she always did whenever someone tried to offer her something. "My son, that's not necessary," she murmured, her soft voice filled with humility. But Lucas smiled with that same stubborn kindness he had when he was a child, when he insisted on helping wash the dishes, even though he could barely reach the sink. "It is necessary, godmother, at least this time. Let me take care of you." The entire store watched in absolute silence. Not an empty silence, but one filled with regret, admiration, shame, gratitude, reflection. A silence that made every person there reconsider what they had seen, what they had judged, what they had believed. It was impossible not to feel the impact of that moment. A simple woman, nearly humiliated, nearly treated as unworthy of the space, now revealed to be the invisible force that helped build the success of one of the country's most influential entrepreneurs. And there, in that moment, heavy with truth, the jewelry store ceased to be merely a place of luxury. It became a stage for transformation, an uncomfortable mirror that exposed prejudice, an altar where respect and gratitude spoke louder than fear and judgment. The lights still shone, the jewels still gleamed, but nothing in that store glittered as brightly as Donna Alzira's dignity and the love Lucas let overflow without an ounce of shame. After that emotionally charged moment, Lucas turned once again to the employees, now with a gaze that blended firmness and compassion, the expression of someone who, despite disappointment, believes that every mistake can become a lesson. First and foremost, he began, his tone controlled, yet cutting through the lingering tension in the air. "I want everyone to understand something fundamental. No one here was hired to judge customers by their appearance, their clothing, their age, or the color of their skin. You were hired to serve with respect, with humanity, and with the understanding that every person who walks through this door deserves dignity." His words echoed through the store's polished showroom, cutting across displays and glittering surfaces like a call for deep reflection. Each employee felt the weight of his words, as if the walls themselves reflected what they had done wrong. Lucas took a deep breath, ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he had carried since adolescence, when he needed to organize his thoughts and emotions in difficult moments, and continued, "This woman, whom you treated as a suspect, is the one who taught me not to judge anyone by what they wear or how they look. She taught me that true value lies in what a person carries inside themselves." His gaze swept across each face, finally settling on the supervisor, who just moments before had maintained a rigid, authoritarian posture. "Today, you hurt one of the most important people in my life," Lucas said, pausing so each word could land with its full weight. "And if that doesn't make you reflect, nothing ever will." The silence that followed wasn't merely embarrassment. It was pure learning, etched into the air in the eyes of everyone present. A reminder that authority without humanity is empty, and that a person's dignity can never be measured by appearances. Donna Alzira, still beside Lucas, held his hand discreetly, as if her touch were a silent seal of approval. She didn't need to say a word. The lesson was already clear to all. True respect begins with recognizing another person's humanity. And in that moment, the store ceased to be just a place of consumption. It became a place of lessons, of awareness, and of transformation. The supervisor, now with a flushed face and hunched shoulders, tried to stammer some justification, but the words died before they even took shape. Every syllable seemed useless in the face of the gravity of what had just occurred. He lowered his head, aware that any excuse would sound empty, small, insufficient, a gesture without weight against the injustice that had been committed. The employee who had confronted Donna Alzira stepped forward timidly, her eyes brimming with tears held back, ready to fall. Her voice was weak, almost inaudible. I didn't know. But the silence, heavy with regret, that filled the store swallowed her words before anyone could respond. Every person present seemed to feel the weight of the mistake that had been made, each heavy breath reflecting the discomfort and shame that could not be ignored. Lucas sighed deeply, as if trying to ease the weight of the indignation he carried, allowing the space to open for understanding. He ran his hand over his face, inhaled deeply, and spoke with a voice that was firm yet serene. No one knows anyone's story just by looking from afar. The words fell like an inevitable truth, echoing through the silent room. That's why the world is so broken, because too many people choose to see only the label and never the heart. The impact of the phrase was almost physical. That lesson seemed to imprint itself on every face, every thought. Lucas didn't just expect understanding, he expected transformation. And if you really want to grow here and in life, you need to learn this now. His voice grew even firmer, but never lost the tenderness that defined his authority. There is no excellence without respect. There is no success without humanity. There is no strong company when its values are weak. The entire room seemed to breathe more slowly. Every word was absorbed, heavy with meaning, as if time itself had paused so that everyone could reflect on what had just been said. It was not merely a moment of correction or punishment. It was a life lesson, a demonstration that dignity and empathy are pillars that sustain any true achievement. Donna Alzira remained by Lucas's side, firm and serene, watching without the need for words, while the silent strength of her presence reinforced the lesson that no one there would ever forget. A person's value is not measured by what they appear to be, but by what they carry in their heart. Donna Alzira, who until then had remained quiet, observing everything with that serenity that only years and life's silent pains teach, finally touched Lucas's arm. The gesture was familiar, sweet, and firm, just as she had done when he was little and got upset over some injustice or frustration. "My son, calm down. They will learn too," she said, her voice carrying a softness capable of calming storms, but also the firmness of someone who knows the boundaries of respect. Even the supervisor, previously so rigid and embarrassed, raised his eyes, unable to look away from the silent authority of this woman. It was remarkable. Even after being humiliated, Donna Alzira could offer understanding before hearing any apology. Lucas sighed, feeling a slight relief and a respect that showed itself in a small, contained smile at the corner of his mouth. "You've always been like this. Always seeing beyond the mistake," he replied with a tenderness that only someone loved since childhood can show. The elderly woman returned the smile, calm, as one who has already understood that life is too harsh to waste time holding grudges. "We all make mistakes. The important thing is not to repeat them." The phrase fell over everyone like a balm. There was no tone of reproach, no moralizing, only a simple, powerful truth. Mistakes are inevitable, but repair is a choice. In the silence that followed, each employee began to realize they were witnessing something greater than just the store owner's godmother. They were in the presence of someone whose greatness was not measured in wealth or position, but in soul. A woman capable of transforming pain into understanding, judgment into learning, and pride into humility. And in that moment, under the sparkle of the jewels and the flawless light of the store, it became clear to everyone. Some people possess a silent strength that transforms hearts, teaches dignity, and redefines once and for all the true value of a human being. Lucas straightened his posture, taking up the space his authority and experience granted him, but now with a gentler voice, filled with firmness and humanity. This store, this business, this empire, none of it means anything if we don't use it to make the world a better place. He paused, letting each word sink into everyone's consciousness. And it starts with the basics, treating people with respect. His gaze swept across the store, meeting the eyes of each employee, as if he wanted to engrave the message not just in their ears, but in their hearts. It wasn't a passing speech, it was a life guideline, a reminder of what he expected from each of them, not only as a leader, but as a human being. You need to remember that every person carries a story. Lucas took a deep breath, the intensity of his voice balanced by the calm of experience. Some are full of victories, others of scars, but all deserve respect. A customer, who had been watching the scene from the beginning, nodded subtly as if recognizing in those words something they too needed to hear. A reminder that no one is immune to judgment and that everyone deserves dignity. Lucas continued, now with a weight that seemed to touch every soul present. One day you might be on the other side. One day it could be you entering a place and being judged unfairly. And when that happens, because it happens to everyone, sooner or later, I hope you remember this moment so that you choose to act better than you did today. The silence that followed was profound. Each employee swallowed hard, feeling the gravity of what had just happened. The initial embarrassment had already given way to sincere reflection, and everyone understood, for the first time, that this day would never be forgotten. And there, among the display cases and jewels, between misty eyes and held breaths, something had changed. Not just the atmosphere of the store, but the consciousness of every person who witnessed Lucas's life lesson and the quiet greatness of Dona Alzira. The atmosphere finally began to shift. The heavy air of tension and embarrassment gave way to a stillness filled with reflection and respect. Lucas led Dona Alzira to a special display case where the most delicate pieces of that year's collection were showcased. Each piece sparkled under the light, but no shine seemed to compete with what filled the air: emotion, memory, and gratitude. The elderly woman walked slowly, still amazed by everything unfolding, gently touching the glass as if caressing a precious memory, each gesture laden with nostalgia and admiration. Lucas watched her with quiet tenderness, as if each sparkle reflected not only the luxury of the store, but also the years of struggle, care, and mutual support they had shared. "Choose, godmother," he repeated, his voice soft and full of affection, "not for the material value, but because I want you to carry something that symbolizes everything you are to me." She hesitated, as she always did when it came to receiving instead of giving. But after a few seconds, she pointed to a simple, elegant necklace with a heart-shaped pendant, delicate and full of meaning. "It's beautiful, and it has meaning," she said, with that balance of humility and wisdom that had always defined her. Lucas smiled, recognizing in its simplicity a perfection that words or ostentation could never convey. Carefully, he took the piece and placed it around Dona Alzira's neck, adjusting it gently, as if each movement were a ritual of honor and gratitude. In that moment, the entire store, employees, customers, even those merely passing through the aisles, realized they were witnessing something no money could buy. It wasn't about luxury, price, or appearance. It was about restored justice, genuine gratitude, and the power of a life transformed by love, care, and respect. And as the necklace rested over Dona Alzira's chest, it became clear to everyone that they were witnessing more than a simple jewelry choice. They were seeing the beauty of a story that proved life always comes full circle and places each person exactly where they deserve to be. The silence that hung in the store's private room had an almost sacred quality, as if every display case, every chandelier, and every finishing detail were witnessing a moment meant to transform lives. After the revelation that Dona Elza, previously treated with suspicion and distrust, was the invisible force who had supported the millionaire through the most difficult years of his life. A collective feeling of remorse swept across the employees' faces. They now watched the elderly woman's every gesture with a respect that finally approached what she truly deserved. Lucas guided her to a comfortable armchair, insisting she sit while he fetched water and a small snack, a gesture that stood in stark contrast to the hostility she had faced just minutes before. But Donna Elsa, with the quiet sweetness she had always carried, smiled humbly and declined most of the offerings, insisting she needed nothing more than his presence and gratitude. The simplicity of her gesture deeply moved Lucas. A mixture of pride, emotion, and nostalgia welled up inside him, as if childhood memories were resurfacing in vivid color. Memories of hardships, of cold, of hunger, and the comfort only that woman had ever been able to provide. Then he asked all the employees to gather around. With a voice trembling and emotion evident, he began to share stories that even the closest journalists did not know. Nights he had slept at her house because there was no food at home. Days when she would forego her own meals to ensure he had enough energy to go to school. Advice he still repeated today like mantras of survival and courage. Every word that left Lucas's mouth struck the hearts of those present like an arrow. They finally understood that they had humiliated not just a customer, but a true giant hidden behind simplicity. Meanwhile, Donna Elsa remained there, serene, with the same gaze that had taught a poor boy to believe in himself. Now silently, she was teaching adults to recognize the true worth of a person, proving that greatness is not measured by the sparkle of jewels, by power, or by money, but by generosity, compassion, and the strength of those who choose, every day, to believe in others. At the end of the stories, Lucas took a deep breath, as if preparing to take a step capable of transforming the fate of everyone in the room. A reverent silence filled the store, and then he spoke, with a firmness that made every employee freeze in place. From today on, Donna Elsa is not just my godmother. She is my lifelong guest in any of my businesses. She comes and goes as she pleases. If she wants to take something, it's a gift. If she wants only to talk, stop everything and listen. And most importantly, none of you will ever dare treat her with less than she deserves. The power of his words echoed through the space like a just and necessary decree. The employees who had previously followed her suspiciously struggled to hold back tears, and the security guard, visibly remorseful, bowed his head in respect and acknowledgement of his mistake. But Lucas was not done yet. With a gesture that left many breathless, he knelt before the elderly woman, holding her hands with a tenderness charged with emotion. "I promised that one day I would repay everything you did for me, and that day is only just beginning," he declared, his voice trembling and full of sincerity. Then he announced an internal mandatory training program focused on empathy, respect, and humanized customer service. "I will not allow my company to be a place for prejudice. I was not raised that way. I was raised by her," he said, pointing to Donna Elsa, whose silent presence reinforced every word. The impact was profound. Everyone understood in that instant that this was no empty speech. It was pure truth, filled with history, emotion, and life experience. As the employees reflected on how to make amends, Donna Elsa, with the generosity that had always defined her, spoke calmly. "Sakunam, children, I hold no grudges. I just want you to treat others with the dignity every human being deserves." At that moment, there was no luxury, protocol, or hierarchy that mattered. There was only the power of respect, gratitude, and the life lesson of a woman whose silent greatness transformed not only the company owner, but everyone who had the chance to witness her legacy. The atmosphere began to transform in an almost tangible way. The store, which had once felt cold, distant, and filled with rigid formalities, now seemed to breathe differently, light, humble, profoundly human. Some employees, still embarrassed by the mistake they had made, approached Donna Elsa to apologize personally, their voices trembling and eyes misted with tears. She embraced each of them as if offering a second chance, conveying the silent strength of forgiveness. It was remarkable to see that, even after the pain of prejudice, she could make room in her heart to welcome and teach. Perhaps that was exactly what made this woman so extraordinary. Lucas watched the scene with a mixture of pride and gratitude, as if each gesture of his godmother confirmed that she was the same woman who, decades earlier, had shared the little she had to ensure he became a better person. Inspired, he decided to turn the moment into something even greater. He picked up the store's internal microphone and announced, his voice firm and emotional, "Dear customers, today we have a very special presence among us. This woman here is the one who taught me about respect, hard work, and humanity. If this company exists, it is because she once believed in me." People in the store, the customers, even some passers-by in the mall turned to look. Some applauded, others were visibly moved. Donna Elsa, shy under such attention, smiled discreetly, a gesture full of simplicity and humility. Lucas continued, revealing something no one had expected. The creation, in Donna Elsa's name, of a foundation aimed at helping underprivileged youth to study, eat, and dream bigger, exactly as she had done for him. It was a way to perpetuate the generosity that had changed his life years ago, and that would now change the lives of thousands of others. The impact was immediate. The entire store erupted in applause, not just for Lucas's gesture, but for the invisible strength of this elderly woman who, without ever asking for anything, had transformed someone's world, and was now poised to transform the world of many more. In that moment, there were no jewels that shone brighter than Donna Elsa's example, dignity, and humanity. After the announcement, Lucas picked up a small box, delicately wrapped, something he had prepared days earlier, without imagining that this would be the perfect moment to give it. Carefully, he placed the package in Donna Elsa's trembling hands, which she received with curiosity and affection, her eyes shining with expectation and warmth. When she opened it, a simple yet undeniably beautiful necklace was revealed, with a heart-shaped cut gemstone. "This is just a symbol, godmother, but it represents everything your love has done for me," Lucas explained, his voice choked with emotion. Donna Elsa ran her fingers over the piece, as if touching something far deeper than gold or crystal. It was as if she were touching the memories of every time she had believed in a boy the world had overlooked. Moved, she replied with the serenity and wisdom she had always carried, "I never expected anything in return, my son. My reward is seeing you well, seeing you honored, seeing you follow the right path." The words touched Lucas deeply. He held back tears, feeling the weight of every gesture, every piece of advice, and every sacrifice of the woman who had shaped his character with lessons no school ever teaches. Then, turning to the staff, he spoke firmly, but with the authority of truth. "Take this day as a lesson. Never judge anyone by their appearance. The greatest wealth in the world often isn't in what a person wears, but in what they carry inside." The team lowered their heads, silently agreeing. The statement wasn't a sermon, it was an irrefutable truth, as clear as crystal, laid bare before everyone. In that moment, even the customers understood they were witnessing something rare. A powerful man publicly acknowledging the greatness of a humble woman who, without ever asking for anything, had transformed his life, and now in front of everyone, showed that true wealth lies in generosity and the love one gives to others. When the flow of the store finally returned to normal, Lucas escorted Donna Elsa to the exit, offering his arm with the same reverence one would give to a queen. As they crossed the glass doors, the sunlight illuminated the elderly woman's face, as if the entire world wanted to pay tribute to her story and her quiet generosity. "Let's have lunch at my favorite restaurant and spend the rest of the day together," he said with the ease of someone who knew that every moment with her was precious and deserved to be cherished. Before getting into the car, Donna Elsa held his hand firmly and said, with that sweet and wise voice, "My son, what you did today was not for me. It was for everyone who has ever been through this. Keep teaching people through your example." Lucas smiled, aware of the truth in her words. The lesson of that day transcended any initial conflict. It was about recognizing dignity, fighting prejudice, and remembering that no one is lesser for having little, and no one is greater for having much. As they said their goodbyes, the store staff lined up at the door, and in unison, applauded Dona Elsa in a gesture of genuine respect. She, with her characteristic humility, simply waved as someone who understands that true greatness does not need a stage to shine. Thus, the episode came to an end, a story that began with injustice but concluded with transformation. A story that proved that the good we sow eventually comes back. Sometimes slowly, sometimes with force, but it always comes back. And Dona Elsa, with her powerful simplicity, left in the air the most valuable message of all. When you plant love, life responds with miracles.